Good evening to those on the line. This is Brandy. We'll be getting started in just a minute. Good evening. Tonight is August 11th. It is 5:33 in the evening, and we are starting the San Joaquin County Civil Service Commission meeting.
Thank you, Brandy. I call this meeting to order. So, here's Mr. Kleiner. And your microphones right now are muted, so when you speak, you'll have to hit the button. Oh, no, yours are on. Okay, you're good. Okay, we'll start with some roll call. Commissioner Lostrom? Present. Commissioner Piccone? Here. Commissioner Gutierrez? Here. Commissioner Wander? Here. Thank you. Okay, thank you. We can proceed, and if, as usual, if you would take us through the agenda, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely, thank you. So item number 1 tonight is the approval of the minutes. The commission has requested to approve the minutes of the May 12, 2021 meeting. Upon review of the minutes, all of our commissioners who are present tonight were also present at the May 12, 2021 meeting.
I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second. Okay, we have a motion to approve, a second. Do we have any discussion or corrections?
No.
I have one, there's an extra T in my name. Where's that? It's the first one, the LOFTST. Oh, okay. So minor correction, and all the other times that it's spelled is correct. Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna call through, for approval of the minutes.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Piccone and a second by Commissioner Wander. Okay, Commissioner Lostrom?
Aye.
Okay, and Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes.
Thank you.
Before we move on in the agenda, I am getting some feedback from our outside participants that it's hard to hear. Tamika, can you put in the chat if it's easier to hear now?
I'm sorry, I'm having a real hard time hearing.
We're looking into it. 1 minute.
Maybe we need to speak more into the mic. I don't know.
That would absolutely help if you get a little closer to the microphone when you speak, see if that actually helps.
Okay, we're going to try this. We're moving on to section number 2, reports of disciplinary action. For this evening, for subsection A, reduction in salary, there are none. Subsection B, dismissal, there are none. Subsection C, demotion, none. Subsection D, suspension, none. Moves us on to section 3, communication. We have no communications this evening. Section 4, old business. There is no old business for the commission to consider. Section 5, new business. We do have several class specs for the commission to consider tonight. So we will start with subsection A, amendment of class specification. Amy Brimmer, our classification manager, is here this evening. She will present the first agenda item, classification project number 21-007 from the probation department. It's amend the classification specifications for juvenile detention officer assistant, juvenile detention officer, juvenile detention unit supervisor, juvenile detention facility supervisor. Amy, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Lostrom, Commissioners. In November 2020, the Chief Probation Officer requested to broaden the type of experience considered as qualifying for each level in the Juvenile Detention Officer Series. Juvenile detention has experienced difficulty in filling vacancies over a period of years and is expected to become increasingly challenging. The probation department identified the requirement to have had previous juvenile detention experience as very narrow in scope. And so they expressed a desire to allow adult corrections experience as qualifying at the experience levels as well. HR reviewed a sampling of the minimum qualifications of our comparator counties and confirmed that it does occur with these counties at all levels that experience, specifically in a juvenile setting, is not required. In addition to adding other types of experience as qualifying, the entire series was reviewed and other updates were made and identified to update, since we hadn't looked at the series since about 2002. So those updates are detailed in your staff report and specified in the annotated classification specifications. The affected union, SEIU, was notified. Levels that experience
Tamika Nelson.
was notified.
Is now joining.
So the affected union, SEIU, was notified of this agenda item on July 27th, and no objection to the proposed changes were made. And Assistant County Probation Officer Tamika Nelson is on the line and available should you have questions of the department.
Thank you. Do we have any questions that we want to ask Ms. Miller or the person on the phone? Okay, then if there are no questions,
Are we gonna, excuse me, are we gonna go through the descriptions of each of the changes made on each one?
We can certainly do that if that's your pleasure.
Well, I had some things that I was concerned about. Well, first of all, are these officers are all now going to be called youthful offender officers? Is that correct?
The officers will continue to have the juvenile detention title in them. The reference to those individuals that they're overseeing is changing to youthful offender, which is in line with the California state's newest legislation. A youthful offender now can be up to age 25, and therefore saying juvenile is a little bit of a misnomer, and we're updating to refer to them as youthful offenders within, but the title itself stays.
The title
Yeah.
is still going to be juvenile detention
Correct.
officer assistant and so forth. Is that
Correct.
And-
Yes.
But they're in their job descriptions are here, they're going to be referred to as youthful offender officer.
Youthful offenders are the people that they're overseeing, correct?
Did the law change the name of the courts as well, like the juvenile courts? Didn't change that?
They didn't. In our research, I found that there were certain times where the juvenile reference was retained, because that was a question I was wondering if we needed to change the title of our classifications as well, the actual position titles. And where you see it, you still see juvenile detention facilities. I'm trying to think where else I saw it, but then we also have the state's newest reference of the actual people as youthful offenders.
Now, is juvenile by law, is that described as someone who's a person under 18? Is that?
Tamika, would you like to answer that question?
What was the question? I can't hear.
Juvenile, this is Commissioner Gutierrez, is the definition, legal definition of a juvenile, a person who is under the age of 18?
And yes, but who they supervise has changed, and what is determined by what is meaning of youth has changed. So under the law now, you're still considered, they use the terms juvenile, minor, and youth interchangeably in the law. So when we say juvenile detention officer, they are still supervising youth who are under juvenile jurisdiction. So that's not predicated by the age anymore. So that can be anybody who committed an offense prior to their 18th birthday. But they could supervise anybody upwards up to the age of 25 because of new legislation that's passed.
Okay, I see.
It's my understanding that if you're under 18 years of age, you commit a crime, you get sentenced. You can get sentenced up to 25 years old. So if they get released on juvenile probation, they could be 23 and then still be supervised, even though they committed the crime when they were under 18.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
It's okay. I was just talking to the other commissioner.
Okay.
Okay, the other thing I'd like to see, or if it could be done, on the duties, down to, I guess, on the first page, and it's something, it's a duty, I think, that's reflected in some of, a couple of the others. Number 8, the duty to learns to subdue and restrain violent or attacking youthful offenders. I would like to see if we could add in a safe and appropriate manner. And then he goes on for the safety and protection of themselves and others. For the safety and protection of themselves, the youthful offender, to add the youthful offender and others.
I don't know. For us, that's covered under Title 15, and that goes under when somebody is hired and techniques and methods that they are allowed to use once they are hired. So it's for the minimum requirement, that is the requirement in order to basically apply for the position. Once you obtain the position, then it's incumbent on your particular agency to train in accordance with the laws that govern that agency. So we would enforce Title 15. It's governed in our policies and procedures within the institution on what methods are applicable once we hire somebody and training them on those methods.
So this is something that someone would see before they're hired, is that correct?
That is correct. We don't expect them to know it prior to hiring, because it's on us to train them within their first year to know what they are allowed to use within our particular facility.
Well, that's fine, and I don't have a problem with that. It's just that I would like to see this put in there. When they read it, they'll see that that is what's going to happen later. They're going to be trained in that.
Correct.
Would there be a problem with adding that to it?
I would have to review what's in our Title 15, because I don't want to put anything that's not in Title 15 or under the use of force applicable laws for our institution in there.
It seems that I'm saying it's very general term to subdue and restrain the youth offender in a safe and an appropriate manner for the protection of themselves, the youthful offender, and others. I don't see how that would be a problem.
I think she's just asking to go back and write the appropriate language in private. I'm sorry, I'm interpreting for you, ma'am, but.
No, that's correct. I would like to use the appropriate language, and that would be guided by basically what we are mandated to do under our use of force policy.
And then it would come back to us.
Correct. So the commission would have the option of voting as is tonight, and staff could still work with the probation department and come back further with the changes, or you could vote not to accept these changes tonight, and we would have to come back with the entire package at a later time.
Well, there's no big rush on this, is there?
There is somewhat of a rush because some of these changes are to help the department be able to hire as the state closes some of the prisons. Correct, Amy? So as the state's closing DDI, for example, we need these spec changes to help us be able
for recruiting purposes. There are people out there that are reluctant to become police officers because people in their community are saying, you know, why do you want to do that? They say, well, because I want to learn how to do it in a safe manner. And I'm gonna, I think it would be helpful in the recruitment. So I'd like to see it in there, especially if it's gonna be the one that's going out for recruitment.
We appreciate the feedback.
Excuse me?
We appreciate the feedback.
Doesn't there have to be a motion to accept his verbiage to take back, and we have to vote on it?
There would be. I was thinking that we'd wait to see if he had any other, comments, but if you're, well, we could vote on now, but he potentially has other comments.
For me, I don't know who is speaking, but basically there is a sense of emergency. We do have locally 2 state facilities that are closing that we know of, and that is DVI and I believe the facility out of Kern County. As such, now as the specs are written, without the suggested change of adding the safe manner, we are excluding those that have adult experience out of that recruitment, and we're losing recruits. What we have in our research, as far as with the probation department and reaching out to other probation departments and reaching out to CDCR, given their closures, you know, a lot of these candidates, potential candidates, meet the criteria, but for the verbiage that is currently in the specs is saying juvenile experience only. So we're going to lose a lot of that candidate pool. We're hearing that a lot of those that are working at prisons locally would apply because they don't want to commute. They still want to work within the community. And as far as applicability of in a safe manner, again, we do that within our training. It's in our policies and procedures. We have that now because of reports or whatnot that we have to submit to the state anyway via DOJ. And when we do have our recruitment and mandatory orientation that everybody goes to once after they apply and they rank with human resources, they all have to attend a mandatory orientation when they're told this is what is expected of the job. This is, you know, this is how you, this the paperwork you have to submit. This is what you can expect. These are the hours. If you're still interested, you know, you can continue on in the process, and then we go through the process, and then we have, of course, the once a candidate passes background and is hired with the department, the orientation, we prepare them well. So the urgency is because we're losing a lot of the candidates because of the absence of the adult experience residential and other residential areas. If not sure the commission is aware, they did close a lot of out-of-state placements. So, you know, looking at local placements whose staff may be also looking for opportunities to work in this field, they're excluded because it doesn't say like long-term residential care in an adult facility. So we don't want to lose out on this potential candidate pool who has worked with this population just in a different setting. So I just like the commission to consider that as well.
This is Commissioner Gutierrez again, and I understand I've worked with the state before, and I know that sometimes things move slowly, but I'm not up here to be a rubber stamp. You know, if this thing had needed to be done, it should have been done earlier, then we could have had it done earlier. So I think I would still like to see, perhaps the staffs get together and work with you to do something that looks like, it's gonna be, give the people that are applying to know that this is in the description. But we're gonna meet again next month with that be a problem with that? Are there people right now?
I don't know. I just know I submitted this request in November 2020, and I don't know if the commission has met since then.
So is there any further discussion on any other issues?
I don't have any other.
I do on this. I don't think it's necessary at all. The people that we're going to be hiring are people that have experience in probation parole already. So they're already aware of what the requirements of the job are. These minimum qualifications meet the specs for the government as far as being appropriate in that aspect of things. I think we're just wasting time and postponing it. These people know that whenever they have to deal with individuals, they got to do it safely, because they've already been working in that environment. And on top of that, when they do get hired, they're going to be trained in appropriate safety procedures and so on and so forth. So I don't see it's necessary to add language at all. I think all we're doing is delaying the process of getting these people hired. And knowing from my past experience in county operations, the necessity to hire people is significant, and the time frame is significant, and there is a short window here because of the two facilities that are being closed for candidates to be available. After that gets done and everybody else comes after those people, there isn't going to be anybody left. We keep delaying this process. So I don't see the reason for doing this at all.
I appreciate that, and my thinking is consistent with yours. The discussion over Title 15, the orientation, the training, all satisfied any concerns I might have had.
You agree with Commissioner Bidoni?
So, we're ready to entertain a motion.
Well, yeah, for the record, I'll make a motion that, the additions that I would like to add to it, so that especially people who are minorities, who are getting applications, will be able to look at that and say, yeah, I want to do that. So I would move that would be, amended to add those words that I just said.
Is there a second? Hearing no second, I'm not sure the exact language, but the motion failed to get a second, so it's
Thank you.
dead in the water. So we still have the package in front of us?
I'll move on the recommendation from HR that we accepted as is.
And a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye. Opposed?
Motion passed.
Thank you. Our next item tonight is classification project number 20-.
Tamika Nelson.
Is now exiting.
This is the classification project for the Public Defender's Office. It's amend the classification specification for Public Defender Investigator Assistant, Public Defender Investigator 1, Public Defender Investigator 2, and Chief Public Defender Investigator. And again, Amy Bremer will be presenting for it. Amy?
Thank you. First of all, is Judy Ann Bellato on the phone?
Yes, I'm
Can you
here.
hear us?
Yes, I
Oh,
can hear.
wonderful. Okay, great. Wanted to make sure that, thank you, Brandy. In June 2020, San Joaquin County Public Defender and Human Resources worked to review and update classification changes to the Public Defender Investigator Series, particularly at the Chief Investigator and Investigator 2 levels. As each are currently written, the Chief Investigator classification manages the investigative division, while the next lower class, the Investigator 2, serves in a supervisory role. The Chief Investigator does supervise the unit and manage that division, but the Investigator 2 does not supervise. However, in order to qualify for Chief Investigator, a candidate must have 1 year of supervisory experience. So this means that unless a San Joaquin County Public Defender Investigator 2 has had experience elsewhere, he or she would not qualify for a promotion at the chief level. So the changes to minimum qualifications were proposed to more accurately reflect the actual operations and use of the level 2 investigators. And then more importantly, it also is being changed to provide a clear path so that they can qualify for promotion into the chief level. So the resulting proposed changes before you for approval today were generated from a joint effort between the public defender and HR and supported by other counties' organizational and qualifications models. The bulk of changes to the other parts of the classification are in the spirit of aligning with the previously mentioned goals that we had, as well as standardizing language within the series and within other county classifications. There were 2 affected employee groups, SEIU and the San Joaquin County Management Association. Both of them were notified of the proposed changes on July 27th. No feedback was received from SEIU for the assistant level 1 and level 2. And then HR and SJCMA met to discuss the changes at the chief level. And Assistant Public Defender Judy Anvolato is here on the line if you have questions for the department.
Anyone have any questions? I have 2 comments. The first is that I think creating a path for people to move upward inside the organization is to be commended, and I just wanted to comment on that. The other is this is not an objection. This is just a comment. This next one I'm going to say is that under the class characteristics, I did get pretty confused with all the discussion of former and latter, and I had to visualize it and okay, this one's the former, this one's the latter, but this is the former, this is the latter. It's just an observation. I'm sure in context it's clear, and I imagine this is language that you all use every time. But as from an outsider, it did give me pause.
I agree. It catches me as well. And maybe at some point we can come up with something a little bit more clear as to which reference we're making. But it is found not just within our organization, but that is commonly used, yes.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that then. So again, not an objection, just an observation. So if there's no other discussion, we can entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve and accept the proposed amendments to these positions.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to approve the classification project for public defender. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion passed.
Thank you. That was our last item under amended class specifications. There are no class specifications for consideration for adoption this evening. We do have a classification study. The classification project number 2020-000. This is for healthcare services under the Behavioral Health Services Division, and it's to maintain 3 senior office assistant / office assistant positions and 3 office worker 2 positions, and then Amy is here again to present this evening.
Do we have a representative from behavioral health in the case of questions? Okay.
I believe Kara is on the line. Kara still shows as being on our line.
Okay, great. Can you hear Kara?
Kara, are you able to hear?
Oh, okay. I'll go ahead and continue and then
She might have to be reminded to unmute her phone.
I'll send it.
make sure to unmute if you're speaking to us.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, how about now?
Yes. Can you hear us? Okay.
is now
This
exiting.
item,
I don't think that was her.
okay, this item presents for your adoption, the results of an incumbent study initiated by the Human Resources Director in 2019 as part of an agreement to settle an employee grievance. The project looked at whether certain clerical positions in behavioral health medical records unit should be reclassified. The study reviewed and analyzed a total of 6 positions in the office assistant, senior office assistant, and office worker classifications. CPS Human Resource Services was enlisted to conduct the study and found that all positions were appropriately classified. Detail regarding the data and analysis used to make this determination is included in the final classification report provided with the agenda item. Upon sharing this finding with SEIU, HR and the union engaged in dialogue. SEIU was informed of this meeting and on July 27th of this item being placed on the meeting agenda today. BHS Deputy Director of Administration Kara Dunn is on the line if you have any questions.
Any questions from you? Hearing no questions or discussion, or motion? The motion would be to accept the results of the incumbent study and maintain the 3 senior office assistants and the 3 office worker 2 positions.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the results of the study and maintain the positions. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion passed.
Thank you. For subsection D, staff reports, we do not have any staff reports this evening. There's subsection E, requests for appeal hearings. There are no requests for appeal hearings this evening under any of our rules. And we have no other requests for the commission to consider tonight. Additionally, there are no other requests to set dates of appeal hearings, which moves us on to public comment. So we have public comment this evening. Persons wishing to address the Civil Service Commission are asked to limit their total presentation to a maximum of 5 minutes for each side of the issue, or submit your comments limited to 250 words or less by emailing publiccomments@sjgov.org. Donna, do we have any written public comment this evening?
We have no public comment.
Is there anybody in-house that would like to make any public comment? Seeing none, that ends our public comment. Section 8, future meeting dates. Our next Civil Service Commission meeting are set here. It's set for September 8th, 2021, here in the Administration Building located at 44 North San Joaquin Street in room 146. There are no appeal hearings for the commission to hear tonight, which moves the end of the meeting, and we will move on to closed session. There is one closed session item for this evening. For those who have the agenda, initially there were 2, and the closed session item number 2, California Government Code Section 54957, consideration of a Rule 20 discrimination request for appeal. Officer of the Auditor Controller is being pulled and continued to a later meeting. So we will have one item for closed session tonight under California Government Code Section 54957, fitness for duty evaluation results for the Sheriff's Office. So we will now adjourn to closed session at 6:08 p.m.
Thank you. So the Civil Service Commission meeting of August 11th is reconvening. After closed session, we have nothing to report, so we are adjourned at this time.
Thank you.
Johnny, you want these back?
Yes.
Or we need to keep, Jennifer, can you hang up that
So we
phone?
issue.
Oh, okay, yeah.